The wedding was supposed to be perfect. It had all the makings of a fairy tale. Beautiful venue, loving couple, everyone in the right mood, and the kind of atmosphere where all your worries seemed to evaporate. But for me, this was a day I had been dreading for months. I never thought it would be this hard to walk into the place where everything changed. I stood outside the church, staring at the grandeur of it all, feeling the weight of every decision I had made leading up to this point. The sun was setting, behind the tall white columns, casting a warm glow over the reception area. The decorations were delicate and elegant, like something out of a Pinterest board, and yet none of that mattered to me now. What mattered, and what had been haunting my thoughts all day, was the face I would soon see. As the guests filtered into the hall, I felt my pulse quicken. This wasn't just any wedding. It was her wedding, her and my best friend's wedding. The same best friend I had spent countless hours with, sharing laughter, secrets, and, ultimately, betrayal. The one person who knew me better than anyone else, the one person I trusted without question, was about to marry the person who had broken my heart into pieces. I swallowed hard and adjusted the collar of my blazer. I knew I had to face her. I had to see the woman who took everything from me. But as much as I had prepared myself for this moment, I wasn't sure I was ready. The invitation had arrived months ago, and I had debated with myself for weeks about whether or not I should attend. I had every reason to stay away. Every rational part of me told me to just send my best wishes from afar. But something inside me told me I needed closure. And this was the only way to get it. As I entered the venue, I scanned the crowd, looking for familiar faces. There was Emily, a mutual friend, smiling and chatting with a group of people, her dress a soft blue that complemented the pastel theme of the evening. She waved me over, and I forced a smile, walking toward her, trying not to let my anxiety show. "Hey, you made it," Emily said, wrapping me in a quick hug. "How are you doing?" "I'm fine," I replied, my voice steady, but I could feel my stomach churning. "Nervous, actually." "I can imagine," Emily said sympathetically. "But it's going to be fine. It is going to be an incredible night. You are going to have fun." I nodded, but I wasn't sure if I believed her. This wasn't about fun. This was about confrontation. It was about finally facing the past and making sense of what had happened between us. The question I'd been asking myself for months was whether I could handle seeing them together. Could I bear it? Would I be able to stand there clapping for them when all I could think about was how it used to be? As I scanned the room for my ex, I saw him standing by the bar laughing with a few friends. My heart sank at the sight. He looked happy. He looked like the same man I once loved, the same man who had once promised me forever. And here he was, in this beautiful suit, so effortlessly charming and confident. He didn't even seem to notice me yet. I felt a mix of emotions surge within me, anger, jealousy, but also a strange sense of longing. I had spent years of my life with him. I had given him everything, only to watch him fall in love with someone else. And yet, here I was, at his wedding, just a spectator, watching as he moved on. I took a deep breath and walked toward the reception area, trying to steady my nerves. The closer I got, the more my mind raced with thoughts of what I would say, how I would act when the moment finally arrived. I couldn't predict how this would go, but I knew it was coming. This confrontation was inevitable. And when it happened, I had to be strong. I had to face my past, no matter how painful it was. Suddenly, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around to see Sarah, the bride, walking toward me. She looked stunning, radiant in her white gown, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She was everything I had never been. The kind of woman who could effortlessly slip into the role of the perfect partner, while I had spent so much time struggling with my own insecurities. "Hey, I'm so glad you could make it," Sarah said, smiling brightly. "Yeah, of course," I said, forcing my own smile, though I could feel my stomach nodding again. "It's beautiful, Sarah. You look amazing." "Thank you," she beamed, her eyes glinting with the joy of the moment. "I'm so happy you are here. It means a lot." For a brief second, I saw the glimmer of the old Sarah, the one who had been my friend before everything fell apart. I wanted to say something, to ask how everything had come together, but the words stuck in my throat. It wasn't the time, and it wasn't the place. As Sarah moved on to greet other guests, I stood there, frozen in the moment. The realization hit me all at once. I wasn't just here for closure. I was here for a reckoning, and I wasn't going to leave until I got the answers I needed. The night stretched on, filled with laughter and clinking glasses, but every minute felt like an eternity to me. I couldn't shake the feeling of being out of place, like an actor stuck in the wrong scene. The guests around me were carefree, absorbed in the celebration, while I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The weight of everything, the broken promises, the lies, the betrayal, hung over me like an oppressive cloud. I finally spotted him again, standing near the dance floor with some of the groomsmen. My heart skipped a beat. He was laughing, his eyes crinkling at the corners the way they always did when he found something genuinely amusing. It made me sick to my stomach. How could he be so at ease? How could he stand there, laughing with his friends, when all I could think about was the life we had shared, the life he had thrown away so easily? A voice interrupted my thoughts. "Do you want to dance?" I turned to see Emily standing beside me, her expression sympathetic but curious. "Come on," she encouraged. "It'll take your mind off things." I forced a smile, trying to push down the lump in my throat. "Sure," I said, though I had no desire to join the festivities. The idea of dancing, pretending everything was normal, felt impossible. But Emily was insistent, and I didn't want to be rude. The music was slow, the kind of romantic ballad that seemed to echo the emotions swirling inside me. As we stepped onto the dance floor, I couldn't help but glance at him again. This time, our eyes met. For a moment, it was as if time slowed. I saw the flash of recognition in his gaze, the briefest flicker of something, but he quickly looked away. He was acting like nothing had ever happened between us, like we were strangers. I felt the anger rise within me. How dare he act like we never shared anything, like we weren't once so in love that the world seemed to fall away when we were together? Emily was talking, but I couldn't focus on her words. My mind was fixed on him, on the way he had betrayed me, on the way he had moved on with Sarah without a second thought for everything we had been. As the song ended, I stepped back from Emily, excusing myself. My eyes were locked on him now. He was standing near the edge of the crowd, talking to Sarah, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. The rage inside me surged, and before I could stop myself, my feet were moving, carrying me toward him. I don't know what possessed me to approach him in that moment. It wasn't like I had planned it, but the need for closure, the need to confront him, was overwhelming. It was now or never. I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed me in the process. As I drew closer, I saw the way Sarah was laughing at something Andrew had said. I could feel my stomach turn. The jealousy, the betrayal, it was all coming to the surface now, raw and unfiltered. "Andrew," I said, my voice cutting through the noise of the room like a knife. He turned toward me, surprise flashing across his face. Sarah looked between us, her smile faltering. There was an awkward pause before Andrew spoke, his voice too calm, too collected. "Hey," he said, his eyes darting between me and Sarah. "I didn't expect to see you here." I laughed bitterly, the sound not quite my own. "Really? I got an invitation," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Why wouldn't I be here?" Sarah looked between us, her expression tense but still trying to maintain a smile. She could feel the tension, but she didn't know what had happened between us. She didn't know what he had done to me, to us. "Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, her voice laced with concern, but I could tell she was more curious than worried. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the words itching to escape. I wasn't sure what I wanted from this confrontation. Part of me wanted answers, while another part of me just wanted to hurt him the way he had hurt me. "You tell me," I shot back, my gaze narrowing at him. "How long has this been going on, Andrew?" His expression shifted slightly, his usual calm demeanor faltering for just a fraction of a second. But it was enough for me to see the guilt, the recognition that everything I had feared was true. He took a step back, glancing at Sarah before looking back at me. "What are you talking about?" I felt a sickening rush of anger. "Dawn, to act like you don't know," I snapped. "You promised me, Andrew. You promised that you would always be honest with me, that we would face everything together." Sarah looked between us, clearly confused now. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice softer this time. I could feel the tension building, the walls closing in on me. I had to say it. I had to say what had been weighing on me for so long. "How long were you and Sarah together before you started seeing her?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, but carrying a weight that threatened to crush me. Andrew's face went pale, and for the first time in a long time, I saw him falter. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. I had my answer. The truth was written all over his face. I felt the ground shift beneath me, the shock of it all rushing through my veins. "You said you loved me," I continued, my voice shaking now. "You said you wanted a future with me, but here you are, lying to me, lying to both of us." Andrew opened his mouth again, but this time it was Sarah who interrupted. "Wait," she said, her voice trembling. "What are you talking about?" "Andrew, what's going on?" The room seemed to close in on me as I stood there, facing the two of them. The man I had once trusted with everything was now the source of all my pain, standing there, unable to even answer the woman who was about to become his wife. I looked at Sarah, my anger turning to sadness. She had no idea what was going on, no idea of the betrayal Andrew had subjected me to. She was innocent in all this, but at the same time, she was the reason why everything I had known and loved had been torn apart. And then, as if it had been building for years, the floodgates opened. The silence that followed my accusation hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating every thought, every word. Sarah stood frozen, her wide eyes darting between Andrew and me, her face flushed with confusion and unease. I could see her trying to piece everything together, trying to make sense of the pieces of this shattered puzzle. But the truth was clear to me now. Andrew had betrayed me. He had chosen someone else, and he hadn't been honest with either of us. Andrew's expression shifted from one of disbelief to something else, something darker. His jaw tightened, and I saw the guilt seep into his eyes, clouding his usual calm demeanor. He opened his mouth as though to explain, but the words never came. He began, but the words faltered on his lips. "I didn't want you to find out like this." "Like what, Andrew?" I said, my voice rising in frustration. "How else was I supposed to find out? You let me live a lie, for God's sake. You let me believe that we could have a future together when all along you were living another life. With her." I gestured toward Sarah, who looked even more lost now. Her face was pale, her hand resting uneasily on the side of her dress, but I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes. She had no idea what was happening, but now she was beginning to understand that everything she thought she knew was crumbling in front of her. "Sarah, I didn't," Andrew started, but his words were cut off by Sarah's voice, soft yet insistent. "Is this true?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but the tremor in it was unmistakable. Andrew glanced at her, his eyes filled with regret and something else I couldn't quite place. He was trapped, and for the first time, I didn't feel sorry for him. "Yes," he said quietly, his voice filled with guilt. "It's true." I can't believe this," Sarah interrupted, her hands trembling as she clutched the edge of her dress. "You, this whole time, I thought. I thought I knew you." She shook her head, the weight of the words settling in. "How could you do this to me?" The words stung, and I saw Andrew, shoulders sag. It wasn't just me now who was confronting him. Sarah was confronting him too, and the truth, as brutal as it was, couldn't be denied. It was all out in the open. I stood there, feeling the anger and pain rise up inside me like a tidal wave. The years of love, of devotion, all had led to this moment, a moment where everything was laid bare, and I realized just how little I truly knew about Andrew. The man I had given my heart to, the man I had built a life with, had been living a double life. "And you thought you could keep this from me?" I continued, my voice shaking with emotion. "You thought I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't figure it out eventually?" Andrew took a step forward, his eyes pleading with me. "I never meant for you to get hurt. I thought I could keep it all under control. I was trying to protect you. Protect me?" I interrupted, my laugh bitter. "How exactly were you protecting me, Andrew? By lying to me every day? By betraying my trust?" I could feel the tears welling up, but I fought them back. I wouldn't cry in front of him, not now. Not when everything had already been taken from me. "Look, I know I've messed up," Andrew said, his voice cracking with guilt. "But you don't understand. It wasn't about Sarah. It wasn't about her. It was about me being selfish. I didn't want to hurt anyone, and I thought I could keep everyone happy. I thought I could keep my life with you and my life with her separate." I felt a wave of disgust wash over me. "How dare you?" I spat, my voice low but filled with venom. "You think you could have both? You think you could keep me in the dark while you played both sides?" "I was wrong," Andrew admitted, his voice barely audible now. "I know that now, but I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to come clean." "Well, it's too late for that," I said sharply. "You had your chance to fix it. You had your chance to be honest with me. And now you are standing here ruining everything for both of us." I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the anger seeping into every word I said. This wasn't just about Andrew anymore. It was about me. It was about reclaiming the power I had lost when he walked away from me. It was about taking back what was mine, my dignity, my trust, and my future. Andrew looked at Sarah, then back at me, as if trying to figure out how to navigate this mess he had created. He was lost, and for once I didn't feel sorry for him. He didn't deserve my sympathy anymore. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Maybe you should have thought about that before," I said, my tone cold and final. "Before you made promises you couldn't keep. Before you lied to me and to her." There was a long, painful silence as Andrew struggled to find the words. But I knew deep down that there was nothing he could say that would make this better. The damage had been done. The trust we had built together had been shattered, and no apology could fix it. Not now. Not after everything that had happened. Sarah stood there motionless, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. She hadn't expected any of this. She had walked into this wedding day full of hope, thinking she was going to marry the man of her dreams. Instead, she was facing the painful reality of the man she thought she knew, the man who had deceived both of us. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah spoke, her voice trembling. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I never thought. I never imagined." "You don't have to say anything," I replied, my voice softening slightly, though the anger was still there. "You're not the one who lied, but you deserve better than this." The room was growing colder, the music still playing in the background, but it all felt distant, like a dream that had slipped through my fingers. I turned to walk away, my heart pounding in my chest, but before I could take another step, I heard Andrew call out to me. "Wait," he said, his voice hoarse. "Please, just let me explain." I turned back slowly, my body stiff with anger and hurt. "Explain what, Andrew?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Explain how you've betrayed me? How you've destroyed everything we had?" Andrew opened his mouth, but no words came out. I didn't need his explanation anymore. I didn't need him to tell me why he had done it. I already knew. And the truth was, I didn't want to hear any more lies. Without another word, I walked away, feeling the weight of the night pressing down on me. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity. It was over, and I was finally ready to let go. I walked out of the reception hall, the sound of the music fading as I moved into the cool evening air. My breath came in shallow gasps, the adrenaline still coursing through me, making every step feel heavier than the last. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and confusion, all swirling together in a storm I couldn't quite calm. I leaned against the outside wall of the venue, closing my eyes for a moment, trying to steady my breath. The air was cool, a slight breeze ruffling my hair, and I focused on the stillness of the world around me. It felt like the calm after the storm, but I knew this was only the beginning of the chaos. I didn't know how things were going to unfold from here, but one thing was certain: everything had changed. I heard the door creak open behind me and turned to see Emily standing there, her face a mixture of concern and curiosity. She walked toward me slowly, her shoes clicking softly against the pavement. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice gentle, as if she was afraid I might break if she spoke too loudly. I shook my head, wiping a tear that had escaped down my cheek, surprised at how quickly my emotions had boiled over. "No," I replied, my voice unsteady. "I'm not okay. I don't even know what I'm supposed to feel right now." Emily stepped closer, her hands resting on her hips. "Do you want to talk about it?" I took a deep breath and looked up at the night sky, the stars faint against the fading light from the reception hall. "I don't even know where to start. I've spent so many years with him, believing we had something special, something real, but it was all a lie. Everything we had, it wasn't what I thought it was." Emily didn't say anything, just stood there, her presence a comforting anchor as I tried to process what had just happened. The confrontation with Andrew had been inevitable, but the aftermath was what I wasn't ready for. The anger was easy. The pain, the betrayal, they were sharp, jagged edges I could feel and react to. But the silence, the overwhelming emptiness that had followed, that was harder to face. "I guess I always knew something was off," I continued, my voice softer now, almost reflective. But I kept convincing myself that it didn't matter, that things would work out. "But now," I trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Emily nodded, understanding. "Sometimes we ignore the signs because we don't want to face the truth. We hold on to what we want to believe, even when everything around us is telling us we are wrong." I glanced at her, surprised by how much truth was in her words. "And now? What am I supposed to do now?" She hesitated for a moment before responding. "I don't know, but you've been strong through all of this. You'll figure it out. You always do." Her words were comforting, but they didn't erase the doubt that lingered in my mind. I had spent so much time invested in Andrew, in the idea of our life together, that now, without him, it felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I wasn't sure who I was without him anymore. What did I have left? I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to gather my thoughts. The image of Andrew and Sarah together, laughing, so carefree, it was still burned into my mind. How could he move on so easily? How could he pretend like nothing had ever happened between us? The question echoed in my head, but no matter how many times I asked it, the answer didn't come. "I don't even know where to go from here," I said, feeling the weight of my uncertainty. "One step at a time," Emily replied. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. It is okay to not know what's next." I nodded, grateful for her reassurance. But I couldn't, and shake the feeling that time was slipping through my fingers. That I was standing at the edge of a precipice, waiting for something or someone to pull me back into reality. I glanced back toward the reception hall, knowing I couldn't go back in there. I couldn't pretend that everything was fine, not after what had just happened. And yet, the thought of leaving the wedding early felt like defeat, like running away from the truth. I wasn't ready to leave yet, but I knew I couldn't stay either. What should I do about him? I asked Emily, turning toward her, my voice laced with desperation. I don't know what to say to him anymore. How do I face him after all of this? Emily gave me a sad smile. You don't have to face him right now. Maybe you just need some space. Time to breathe, time to think. He's not going anywhere, and neither are you. Take a step back and figure out what you need for yourself. Not for him, not for anyone else. I looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. You were right. I have been living my life for him, for us. But now I need to focus on me. I need to figure out who I am without him. Exactly, she said, her tone firm. And whatever happens, you have people who care about you. You are not alone. Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge of uncertainty. I didn't know what the future held, but at least now I knew I wasn't completely lost. The path ahead was unclear, but I could take it one step at a time. And that was enough for now. As I stood there, feeling the cool evening breeze wash over me, I made a silent vow to myself. I would rebuild my life piece by piece. It wouldn't be easy, but I was strong enough to face whatever came next. And maybe, just maybe, I would find a way to forgive myself for allowing myself to love someone who couldn't love me the way I deserved. The sound of laughter and music from inside the venue carried on the wind. But I stood there, unmoving, for a long moment. I didn't need to hear it anymore. I didn't need to be part of their world anymore. I had my own world to rebuild. I stayed outside for what felt like hours, the quiet of the night surrounding me like a cocoon. The wind had picked up, rustling the leaves in the trees nearby, and the distant sounds of the wedding celebration seemed to grow quieter with every passing minute. Emily had eventually left to join the others, leaving me alone with my thoughts. And that's when it hit me. This was the beginning of something new, something I had never planned for. I thought back to the moments when I'd been in love with Andrew. The way his touch felt like home, the way we laughed together about the smallest things, the way his presence had once given me a sense of security I'd never known before. Those moments were now tainted by the reality of his betrayal. But as much as the past haunted me, I knew I had to face the future, and facing it meant leaving him behind. For the first time in years, I didn't know who I was without him. I had wrapped my entire identity around our relationship, around the idea of us. Now, it was just me. And while that was terrifying, it was also liberating. I took a deep breath and pushed myself away from the wall. The sharp edges of pain were still there, but they were beginning to dull, becoming part of my past. A past I was ready to leave behind. I wasn't sure where my life would take me, but I knew one thing for certain. I had to take control of my own narrative. I had come to this wedding hoping for closure, but instead, I had received something much more powerful, a chance to start over. I turned toward my car, the long walk back to the parking lot feeling like the first step in my new life. The familiar feeling of grief settled in my chest, but it didn't feel like the crushing weight it had before. It felt like something I could carry, something that wouldn't define me. As I climbed into the car and started the engine, the reality of what I was leaving behind settled over me. Andrew, Sarah, the wedding, all of it. It was done. There would be no going back. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a strange sense of peace. Driving through the empty streets of the city, I thought about everything I had lost. But more importantly, I thought about everything I had gained. I had always known that I deserved better, but it had taken this painful moment to finally realize what that meant. I wasn't going to settle for a love that wasn't real. I wasn't going to continue to hold on to someone who didn't see me for who I was. It was time to heal. Time to rediscover myself. I drove to the beach, the waves crashing gently against the shore as I parked my car and stepped out. The salt air hit me immediately and I took a deep breath, the cool night air filling my lungs. I had always loved the beach. There was something about the vastness of the ocean, the endless horizon, that made me feel small in the best way possible. It reminded me that life was bigger than any one moment, any one person. I walked toward the water, my feet sinking into the sand with each step. The moon was full, casting a silver glow on the waves as they rolled in. The sound of the water crashing against the shore was calming, almost meditative. For a few moments, I allowed myself to just be present, to feel the rhythm of the world around me. The weight of the last few hours, of the confrontation, of the pain, started to slip away. I realized how much I had been holding on to, and for the first time I allowed myself to let go. I looked out at the horizon, where the sky met the ocean, and I felt a small spark of hope flicker inside me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew that whatever came next, I was going to face it head on. I wasn't going to let fear or doubt stop me from moving forward. As I stood there, the wind whipping through my hair, I realized something profound. It wasn't just Andrew I had to let go of. It was the version of myself I had built around him. I had to let go of the idea that my happiness depended on someone else. The future was mine to shape. A few more minutes passed, and I knew it was time to go. I had done what I came here to do. I had confronted my past, and I was ready to walk away from it. I returned to my car, but this time I felt different. I felt lighter. I felt stronger. As I drove home, I allowed myself to imagine what life might look like without him, without the past weighing me down. There was so much to look forward to. I didn't need someone else to make me whole. I was whole on my own. The road ahead was still uncertain, but that was okay. I was finally ready to face whatever came next, and for the first time in a long time, I was excited about the possibilities. I didn't know where I would go from here, but I knew one thing: I was going to be okay. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, a mix of relief, anger, and surprisingly freedom. I was walking through a fog, unsure of where my feet were taking me, but every step felt like I was leaving something heavy behind. Leaving Andrew, leaving the past, it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And as I took those steps, I realized that I was also moving toward something else, a new version of myself. A version I wasn't sure existed before, but one that had been waiting to emerge all along. I spent a lot of time alone in those early days. I needed the space to process everything that had happened. There were moments when I felt the weight of the betrayal too sharply, and I had to pull back, to retreat into myself for a while. But with each passing day, the pain softened, and I found that it didn't have the same hold over me. I was no longer consumed by thoughts of Andrew, of Sarah, of what had been. I was learning to focus on what was ahead, on what I could create for myself. It wasn't easy. Some nights I would lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the ghosts of the past flickering through my mind like images from a movie I couldn't escape. But even then, I knew it was part of the process. Healing wasn't a straight line. It was a series of ups and downs, and I was willing to take every twist, every turn in stride. I started picking up the pieces of my life, one by one. I focused on my work, poured myself into the things I loved, things that had been pushed to the side for too long. I signed up for a painting class I had always wanted to take. I reconnected with old friends, friends who had been there for me long before Andrew ever entered the picture. I started to fill my days with things that made me feel alive again. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, I went to the small cafe down the street to grab a coffee. The warm scent of espresso filled the air, and the sound of soft conversation surrounded me, offering a sense of calm I hadn't realized I needed. I ordered my usual, sat by the window, and watched the world go by. That's when I saw her grace. I wasn't sure if it was fate or coincidence, but there she was, standing in line at the counter, looking out the window as though lost in thought. I didn't know what it was that made me stand up and approach her, but I did. The moment I reached her, she turned and saw me, her eyes wide as if she hadn't expected anyone to approach her. For a moment, we both just stood there, unsure of what to say. "Hi," I said, my voice gentle, trying to find the words. "Grace, right?" She nodded, her expression still a little guarded. "Yeah, hi," I smiled, offering her a seat. "Would you like to sit down?" She hesitated, then nodded, accepting the offer. We sat across from each other, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. "You look different," I said finally, breaking the quiet. "More grown up, I mean." Grace smiled faintly, the edges of her lips curving just slightly. "Yeah, I guess." Well, it's been a while since we've talked. I think a lot's changed for both of us. I nodded, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between us. I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't know about you, and I never wanted to hurt you. Grace looked down at the table, her fingers playing with the rim of her cup. It's not your fault. It's not like you knew, right? It's complicated. I know, I said softly, reaching out and placing my hand on the table, close to hers. I'm just sorry you had to find out this way. It wasn't fair to you. She looked up at me, her eyes softening. You don't have to apologize. I think I understand more than you think. My mom, she kept a lot of things from me too. Things I wasn't ready to hear. But in the end, it was all about trying to protect me. I could see the sadness in her eyes, the weight of all the years she had carried alone. I knew that feeling. The feeling of being caught between two worlds, unable to find your place in either. It was clear now that Grace was no different from me in that regard. You deserve more than that, I said, my voice filled with conviction. You deserve the truth, and you deserve to be loved, fully, without secrets. Grace met my gaze, her expression shifting as if she was hearing something she had longed to hear for years. I just want to be part of a family, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I felt my heart ache at her words. The same longing I had carried for so many years, the need for connection, for belonging, was the same yearning I saw in Grace. She wasn't just a child caught in a messy situation. She was a person who had been denied the one thing everyone deserved: love without conditions. I know what that feels like, I said, my voice tender. But Grace, you don't have to do this alone. I want to help you. I want to be there for you. The words felt like a promise, a vow that was born from everything I had been through, everything I had learned in my own journey of healing. And as I looked at her, I realized that this was a new chapter I was ready to embrace, not just for me, but for her too. Grace took a deep breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time since I had met her. I think I'd like that, she said, her voice finally steady. We spent the next few hours talking, getting to know each other in ways we never had before. The conversation flowed easier than I expected, like we had always been meant to share this space together. There was no animosity, no resentment. Just two people trying to figure out where they fit in a world that had thrown them both unexpected curveballs. When I left the cafe, I felt lighter. I felt like I had taken the first real step toward healing, not just for myself, but for her too. For Grace, she wasn't just the daughter of my ex. She was a part of the new life I was creating for myself. She was part of the family I had always dreamed of, one built on truth, love, and understanding. As I walked home that night, the stars overhead felt brighter than they had in years. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing for certain. It was going to be mine. And I was finally ready to live it.